CIBC would have indicated an interest in selling its entire OECS holding. My understanding is that, the 4 smaller branches within the OECS sub-region, they have deals on those 4 branches. They do not yet have a deal on the branch in St. Lucia, nor do they have a deal on the branch in Antigua and Barbuda. But one can speculate that they will sell the Antiguan branch and that they will also sell the St. Lucian branch. So our indigenous banks now need to ready themselves for a possible acquisition. And the 2 banks here that could afford to purchase CIBC Antigua would be ECAB and ACB. And I'm hoping that the management of those 2 banks, that they are proactive enough to get on to the leadership of CIBC and to start the negotiations, not to allow some other external institution to start those negotiations. You recall that at one point there's a South American entity that had negotiated with CIBC Caribbean and or first, what's the name of it now? And whatever it is, FCIB. There was a South American entity that they had negotiated with, and the South American entity had agreed to buy the branches in the OECS, but the transaction was not approved by the central bank for many reasons. So before maybe some other institution comes forward, I want to implore on our bankers here, the directorship and management of ACB and ECAB, even if they have to do a joint venture, that they should approach the directors of CIBC Caribbean as soon as possible and to try and do a deal. I mean, I'm always of the view that those assets should be controlled locally, because we have to try and grow and expand ownership so that we can retain more of those profits for development. I'm happy to see that in the other countries that, the indigenous banks are following the lead of ECAB. As you know, ECAB would have provided leadership on the issue of acquiring these, at least the branches of these foreign banks, followed by ACB. And, it's very important that we hold on to those assets. And I believe that our banks, they have the competence, they certainly have the resources to acquire these banks or these branches and to run them effectively. And what will happen in this case, based on the increased domestic ownership, you'll find that the profits are retained here. Our banks will grow bigger, more powerful, they become more viable, because a small bank in today's dispensation is an anachronism. They just cannot survive in today's dispensation. In fact, I believe that the post-COVID situation for ACB and ECAB will be pretty good, and it's because of their size. Had they not grown and they remain small, perhaps, we'll be thinking about some form of government intervention again in order to support them because of the wounds inflicted by COVID. But when banks scale up their asset base and increase their profits, they become more resilient. And that was what was lacking within the banking sector here in Antigua and Barbuda. That is why Bank of Antigua failed. That is why many banks before the Bank of Antigua failure happened. That's why they failed. They're too small to survive. That is why the Swiss American National Bank did not survive. That is why subsequently ABI failed as well. They're too small. So in order to sustain our domestic banking sector, our banks must grow inorganically.
This is Antigua Breaking News.